The Falcons have made another splash signing an NFL free agency, bringing on Darnell Mooney, the wide receiver from the Bears, on a 3-year, $39 million contract. Now, initial reaction to this was, I like the player. I like Darnell Mooney. I think he's a good wide receiver. Don't like the contract. This is a big contract. 3 years, $39 million. Now, only $26 million guaranteed, so I look at it as a 2-year, $26 million contract. It's still $13 million a season, but if you don't love it, you can get out after 2 seasons most likely. But still, even if it's just 2 years, $26 million, but let's just go with 39 for the time being. $39 million for a guy over the last 2 seasons that has not put up over 500 receiving yards? I like Darnell Mooney because of what he was able to do in his first 2 seasons, and that he never really meshed well with Justin Fields the last 2 seasons. So I was fully on board with signing Darnell Mooney on a 1-year contract, kind of a prove-it-esque deal. Not pay him like a guy that's put up 3 straight seasons of at least 800 yards. I just feel like, listen, there is a really good high upside with Darnell Mooney. He emerged on the scene awesome in Chicago. He was a 5th-round pick out of Tulane. He somewhat fell in the draft because, remember, in 2020, there was very little pre-draft research going on, right? You didn't have the full combine and pro days, and scouts really weren't at their best that draft as a result. So some players slipped further than they probably would have if they had the full NFL offseason draft experience. And I thought it was a great pick by the Bears. It looked great the first 2 seasons. Then the last 2 years, especially with DJ Moore coming in this season, he just never really found his footing in Chicago. And I don't think that's a reason to think he can't be a good wide receiver, or that's good enough reason to cross him off your list. But holy shit, $39 million? Like, you're paying a guy that has not quite had the production of that type of contract. And it's also no surprise you can connect the dots yet again. There's a one-way flight going from Chicago to Atlanta. Ryan Pace, who works for the Falcons front office now, was the Bears GM when they drafted Darnell Mooney, and he has had a caravan of former Bears players coming down to Atlanta, and Darnell Mooney is just the latest one. But Atlanta did need to make a wide receiver signing. And when it comes to free agency, even I can remind myself that most all free agent big signings are overpays. That's somewhat of the nature of free agency, where if you want a player and you don't want to wait till the draft, you're likely going to be in competition for that player, and whoever signs him is going to be the team that likely gave the biggest offer unless a player took a discount for some reason. And that likely means you probably overpaid him a little bit. But I look at this 3-year, $39 million contract, and I think it's the exact same money Gabe Davis got from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Gabe Davis has 27 touchdowns since he entered the league. What was Darnell Mooney's touchdown total? Can we put it back on screen? Like, at some point, I do think there is a, whoa, he's good. I don't know if he's so good that we're going to give him $39 million for 11 touchdowns. Like, there's a line in the sand for every player, right? And I think the Falcons probably crossed the line on this one. However, once they added Kirk Cousins, what I said in the video yesterday was, I like the Kirk Cousins signing. He's the best possible quarterback option for 2024. But if you feel like you're done with Kirk Cousins, you're not. There's more work to be done on this roster, and I wanted to see them go out and do some more work. So I did get what I asked for. It was a little bit more than I bargained for. But how would you grade the Darnell Mooney signing? I'd give it a C+. I just feel like they probably overpaid this one. They may have gone on in the deep end a little bit too much. This kind of gives me a little bit of Christian Kirk vibes from Arizona to Jacksonville. Now, Kirk got more money, and he was more productive in his first few seasons in Arizona than Darnell Mooney was in Chicago. And again, like the player, I think he's going to be a good Falcon. He's going to be a good player for Atlanta. But I do feel like giving him a 3-year, $39 million contract, I bet Atlanta feels like they are somewhat complacent now at wide receiver, and they'll add a guy or two in the draft. That puts them up to 4 wide receivers. one more in free agency, very low level, 1 year, $3 million signing, kind of like Scotty Miller last year, and then add a UDFA or two and hope one of them hits. And, well, that's your 4 to 5 wide receivers. The Falcons need to have some good depth at that position because unlike Arthur Smith's offense, Kevin O'Connell, which with the Sean McVay of Kevin O'Connell, which Kirk Cousins was, and then you've got Zach Robinson. Like, there's a lot of play action incorporated to it, but there's also a lot of targets being implemented. I mean, the Falcons, I beg your pardon, the Vikings predominantly ran an 11 personnel set. 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers, right? It was Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, and then for a while Adam Thielen, and then it turned into Jordan Addison. So you've got to have 3 wide receivers that you feel confident can all get the job done, and not Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and a guy running cardio. Like, let's get 3 legit wide receivers, and I think you just ate a huge chunk of the pie for Darnell Mooney when maybe you wanted to spread that over 2 guys or so. Now, we did reach 20,000 subscribers, and I wish it kind of happened during a different time of the offseason because I'd be able to get the champagne out a little bit more. But with NFL free agency here, it is just a whirlwind right now. We are going 1,000 miles per hour at the office. So I do want to say once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone that subscribed and helped us reach this milestone. It really does mean a lot. It's a big milestone in the YouTube world. So if you have not joined yet, I recommend you do so. It's completely free, and it's the best Falcons YouTube content out there per my mom. So I'll take it. Now, going back to Darnell Mooney, kind of put a bow on this, and we'll talk about Kirk Cousins next on the show. Good player. Overpay. Most free agent contracts over $30 million are somewhat of an overpay, but I feel like this one was a little bit too rich, right? This one felt like it was a little bit too much dough going to Darnell Mooney for 1 year out of 4 seasons with over 500. Oh, no. 1 year out of 4 seasons with over 1,000 yards, back-to-back 400-yard seasons, and 3 touchdowns, I think it was, the last 2 years combined. That just felt like maybe you were getting a little bit too nervous about losing out on Mooney, and you had to give him an offer you can't refuse. I got to envision Darnell Mooney, who, by the way, turned down a contract extension from the Bears. That's at least the rumor out of Chicago at the start of the 2023 season. That was actually, I don't even think it was over $39 million. I think it was like a 3-year, $30 million contract, $10 million a season, somewhere in that neighborhood. He says no, bets on himself. Looked to be a bad bet, right? He had 1 touchdown, 400-ish yards. Somehow Ryan Pace says, oh no, I got my guy from 2020 again, and he gives him a 3-year, $39 million contract. So hopefully he lives up to it, or at least some of it, because otherwise this is just going to look back as one of the worst signings in Falcons' recent history. Kirk Cousins. Let's kind of wrap up the show by talking about the big move in free agency yesterday, the 4-year, $180 million contract that I wonder if after sleeping on it, some of you guys kind of woke up with a different opinion today, because it was no secret that my preferred candidate was Justin Fields. I'm a clown. I said Fields was a Falcon. He was not a Falcon. It was Kirk Cousins. He was the number 1 guy all along. I didn't think Minnesota would let him leave. I just horribly botched it. But you know what? You live and die by predictions in sports, so I'm not going to cower or hide away from it. However, when it comes to the actual dollar amount, 4 years, $180 million is not a small amount of money. It's the biggest free agent contract given out in recent memory. Last year, I think the biggest was Derek Carr, 4-year, $150 million. This year, we're seeing $30 million salary cap increase. Everyone's getting a raise, right? And that's somewhat just how basic economics work. You have more money to spend, you're going to get bigger salaries spread across the board. So for me, Kirk Cousins, 4 years, 180. I'm not too upset with the actual dollar amount. I don't feel like this sets you back. You wanted to get the best quarterback option in 2024. This was the best option for 2024. Now, is gambling $180 million on a guy, at least what's called $100 million, because that's what's guaranteed. So gambling $100 million on a guy who's going to turn 36 off an Achilles injury, yeah, that's a huge roll of the dice at the craps table. And maybe they felt like there was no better option. The Justin Fields market has really soured the last couple of weeks. There were no other really good free agent options. And Arthur Blank, turning 81 years old, if he wants to see a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, Kirk Cousins is probably the best option in free agency to accomplish that goal. I always preferred Fields because I felt like he was still an ascending player and there's a much longer career span compared to Cousins, who's wrapping up his career at this stage. But Kirk Cousins, 4 years, $180 million. I can make peace with it. I can get behind it because the Falcons did fulfill my request, which is you have more work to do on this roster than just quarterback. So I don't want you to feel like you're a quarterback away. And they added a wide receiver today. So we'll see what other moves they make in free agency to fulfill their need at pass rusher. But Cousins, a Falcon, I can get with it. I can get behind it. I hope you can warm up to it as well because I do feel like if you're worried about Kirk Cousins just being a bad quarterback, I think you're sticking your head in the sand. Smitty?
Yeah, so I just looked this up. Before this Kirk Cousins deal, like you mentioned, Derek Carr was the largest free agent signing ever.
Are we going to play trivia?
Oh, yes.
Okay, give me the year.
2018.
2018.
Is the next largest.
Was it Kirk Cousins going to
It was
Vikings?
Kirk Cousins again.
Can you find the one before that?
I don't. Maybe Nick Foles when he got signed by the Jags after.
No, I wonder if it's Ndamukong Suh going to the Dolphins. He got a big payday that year.
Byron Jones, no.
Okay.
Not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So credit to Kirk Cousins. He's the ultimate cash-in guy in free agency. He's a quarter of a billionaire. He's a third of a billion. It's absolutely bonkers. All right. That will do it for us on this edition of Falcons Today. Darnell Mooney, 3-year, $39 million contract. I like the player. I don't like the contract. But if the player lives up to even 70% of the contract, I don't think anyone's going to be upset about it too much. So clearly some work to be done for Darnell Mooney to live up to a huge payday. And Kirk Cousins, he's getting another target to throw to. That was a big need, especially if you think about, hey, play action. What do you want? You want a vertical threat, right? A guy that can really stretch the field after doing a fake handoff to Bijan Robinson. Darnell Mooney is the man for the job when it comes to that type of role. He's not a body receiver or a guy that can move the chains easily on 3rd and 8 or something like that. Not a red zone, big frame target to chuck the ball up to. He's a speed demon. He's a vertical threat, and that's something that could complement Drake London very well and also feed nicely into what they want to do with Kirk Cousins in that play-action game.